Hey folks, how you doing? Rob Carey here, Zenshave, and I thought I'd just take a few minutes to show you something that I came up with that really helps me with buffing on my lathe and honing of blades and things. Like many of you, I probably have a very small shop. My shop is my two-car garage, and I'll just pan around here a little bit for you. It's packed to the ceilings with tools, and I don't have a lot of room for anything else. It's an incredible mess here. It's been winter time here in Canada, so during the winter time the shop kind of goes to hell, and I do projects in as confined to spaces as possible here. And usually in springtime I'll open her up and clean her up again. But one of the things that I hate is, you know, having sort of too many tools and too much clutter. So what I came up with here for the lathe is I wanted to have a way to buff on my lathe. Now I have this three-wheel set here for my midi-lathe. That works really good. It's your typical three-wheel set. You know, one wheel for triple E, one wheel for white diamond, and one wheel for wax. And this is an awesome system. This is the Beal buffing system. It's great for polishing small items and really getting your finishes to shine. But one of the things I have a problem with, especially when I'm dealing with, you know, things that are roughly the size of a shaving brush or something, is when it's on the lathe, you only have so much room in between the wheels before you catch this, you know, the wrong wheel. You don't have a lot of room to go underneath. Sometimes I use pieces larger than shaving brushes, like the buff boxes or larger furniture projects, or, you know, anything that's generally bigger than this. It's problematic on a lathe like this because you just don't have a lot of play between the wheels, and there's not a lot of room underneath. So I could do what a lot of people do, and that's, you know, to get a dedicated buffer grinder kind of system. I have a grinder set up here beside the lathe for honing and sharpening stuff, but I didn't really want to get another thing set up. So well, I really like, you know, the variable speed motor on a lathe. You can do a lot with buffing with that kind of power. You know, you can go nice and slow for delicate items. You can go a little bit faster if you're trying to hone steel. So there's a couple of things you can do that will really, you know, make your lathe more of a multi-function tool. And this, I'll give you an idea here of what I've done here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tailstock off here for starters. I'm going to set that aside. And I'm going to take off the buffing system. Set that aside. For those of you, this is 1x8 TPI headstock on this Delta 46460. One of the coolest things you can get for, at least, you know, I think any lathe, are these tapping mechanisms. Now these taps will let you make your own face plates, chucks, all kinds of things that really make life simpler. And I'll give you an idea. So with this off, I've made a number of, you know, just by tapping in hardwoods to match the thread of my spindle. I've made some very nice honing wheels. This is a leather hone with some aluminum oxide, I think it is, you know, the green honing compound, screwed in and glued, MDF hardwood. And with the tap, it allows you to thread right onto the spindle. And the cool thing about it is you'll finish it right on the spindle. So once it gets on the lathe, you have a dead flat system. You know, you'll face it off, and you have an awesome way to hone tools, and you know, you don't have to stop at just that. I've done sanding discs, and I made a table rest for using the sanding disc on. That turns your lathe into basically a disc sander, so you can get some more use out of that. Just a little piece of wood that rests on the bed, comes up to about the halfway mark, and then you get, you know, a perfectly good disc sander. But today was more about buffing, improving buffing, and showing you a way to extend your lathe into a more flexible buffing system to get rid of those pitfalls I had with that three-wheel system. So what I did was, I went down to my metal shop. First of all, I made a headstock, or sorry, not pardon me, a headstock, a chuck to hold a 5/8 inch shaft, pardon me, on here. And that's one way to go. So if you don't have a good chuck, like a one-way Talon, which I have, and I'm going to use that because for purposes it's quicker here today. But if you don't have one of the, a headstock and you want to do this with your lathe, you could finish off, you know, the headstock like I just showed you. Shaft in, drill a hole, make a set screw. You've got a chuck for basically a nice piece of steel. And it's perfectly true. That's one way to do it. But like I said, I want to do it quicker today, so I'm not going to use that one. But that's one way to do it. For today's purposes, I'm going to use a one-way talon. It's a lot quicker to adjust. So I'll screw that in there. I've got the standard chucks in place, or the standard jaws in place on the one-way. So what I did, and this is, I've got it assembled now, so I could take it apart. What I did is I made, out of 3/4 inch MDF, I did a 2-piece wide glued together for the top, and just 3/4 inch for the base. I made a similar mechanism for holding on the ways on the bottom, and what it does is it goes into my lathe. You can see I've also made a runner on the bottom here. Runner is exactly the same thickness as the slot in my ways here, so that fits on the lathe nice and snug. Bear with me while I get it in here. There we go. It slides in, and you'll see there's almost no play in that. I do have a little bit of a lip here, though. That makes it a little bit difficult to get it over the first. There we go. So what I do is get it on there, snug it up. That's not going anywhere. Shaft goes into the center of the one-way. Tighten it up. And I now have a shaft-driven buffing system. Now on this end, I'm just going to turn this a little bit here. Turn this down so you can see. On both sides of this 3/4 inch ply, so that's 1.5 inches, I've got these pillow block type bearings. 5/8 inch shaft, 5/8 inch bearings with these pillow block. You can lube them here, and they're on both sides. These are about $10 to $12 each online. That's Canadian, so it'd be cheaper in the US. $10 to $12 each, so you're looking at roughly, you know, $20 to $22. Let's say $20 for 2 of those. And the piece of shaft steel here, I got, you know, I guess it would be, I think it was 28 or, pardon me, that was like 38 inches worth of steel. I paid $10 for that. Great, you know, good stiff tool grade steel. Cut that off on the end with a hacksaw. Once you've got this done, the only other things you really need are these type of spindle adapters. So 5/8, they're bored to go on a 5/8 inch shaft. You can do this in 1/2 inch if you want, but I think the extra little bit on 5/8 gives you a bit more rigidity, which is probably good for safety and everything else. So once you've got these adapters, they slide right on the end of that. Then you tighten up the 2 set screws. Allen key. Now this is a little bit longer than I would want it. I might actually cut this off a little bit shorter, but for this purposes it'll illustrate the point really well. I'm going to turn it just a little bit here, because now what you can do with that is, with this type of stock, you can mount your buffing wheels right on there, and you've got, you know, basically floor to height clearance here, because this is right at the edge of my bench. Let's see if I turn that down a bit so you can see. Yeah, it goes right down to the floor, so you've got as much room as you need with this on the end of here, floor to ceiling. No worries about touching another wheel. Lots of clearance to the left or the right. That's one way to mount the lathe, or a thing on there, a wheel on there. Another way is a different type of chuck. These are quite handy. These are threaded, right way thread, I think they are, so that it threads the opposite way of the way lathe spindle's turning. So when I put this on here, it goes on the same way. Bored for 5/8 inch shaft. Tighten up the set screws to keep it snug. What you can then do is take, you know, again, buffing wheels like this one here, and turn the lathe on. And with it threaded like this, you can feed the disc on and it catches. Now you've got a perfect buffing wheel for doing your buffing. You can do it with anything that's a little bit smaller. Like I said, this is a 5/8 inch shaft. The conical spindle on there is probably closer to 1/2 inch at the thickest, but you know, threading it on that way, and then easy to quick change because you then just sort of turn off your lathe, thread it the opposite way. Easier said than done. Ah, come on, get off there. I guess I could put my lathe in reverse, do it that way. That's one way to go. One of the other benefits of doing this on a lathe rather than a dedicated grinder, and then, you know, put on another wheel. Just got to remember to let go. Don't hold on to the wheel and spin it. And again, taking it off. Whoop. Perfect. So that's a great use of this system here. Now, one of the other things you can do with these, this is a really flexible system. So I've shown you 2 ways you can mount buffing wheels on here. I'd say you could go up to 6 or 8 inch buffing wheels on this with no problems. If you have a variable speed lathe, you know, sky's the limit with what you can do with that. But I have this other kind of chuck that's kind of nice. And using that first spindle I showed you, that was threaded for the 5/8 inch shaft. Sorry, bear with me. This one here. This type of shaft that you can put the larger wheels right on, just like this, and then you use a nut, screw it on this side. Because it's threaded, I've got this other kind of chuck that's really handy for this one. So you put this on, tighten up your set screws, and then this thing goes on here. And it's basically like a tiny Jacob's chuck, right? Which would allow you to take any 1/4 inch buffing mechanism, put it on there, tighten it up. It's actually a long, there you go. Tighten it up. I'm not going to screw this on, but you get the idea. Well, tighten up your set screws. I'll just do one. You get the idea. You get your buffing mechanism on there. So you can put like a bowl buff or, you know, more cylindrical type of buffs on here. Sky's the limit, right? So I hope that helps. It's something I'm pretty happy with. Good solid system for, you know, basically about $30. If you count $10 again for the shaft and $20 for your bearings, and then, you know, these things here were, you know, $10 and $10. So definitely cheaper than $100 plus for a buffer. Hope that helps. Thanks.